Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we have some football to talk about today. We had Monday Night Football last night, as well as Sunday games, so we're going to break down Monday Night Football. We're going to talk about the injuries that happened on Sunday. We're going to talk about a guy that may be declared for the NFL draft, and we're heading into Week 15 now. The season has flown by, so I've brought on a special guest to talk about some disappointments, some surprises, as well as a little bit of playoff strategy going into our fantasy football playoffs. So all that and more coming up on Wake and Take. So sit back, relax, sip your coffee, and enjoy the show. And what better guest than the Podfather himself hopping on the Wake and Take to break down everything we need to know heading into Week 15. How are you doing?
A little preview of Jason Allwine and the Podfather talking together. You're coming on the Mind of Mansion show later today. So it was Theo's idea to say, hey, you should do a preview if you go on Wake and Take that morning of. Mm-hmm. And I said, that sounds great. Wake and Take with a couple Monday Night Football games to talk about. I'm excited. And they were both shockingly good games.
Yeah. Yeah, we had upsets. Really both of them. Giants end up beating the Packers, and the Titans beat the Dolphins in late minute fashion. Really in both ways. We had a Tommy DeVito game-winning drive. We had a Will Levis kind of game-winning drive, and then getting over the top with Derrick Henry. But still, what a game, both of them. A fun little Monday night action.
Yeah, Derrick Henry with the 2 yards of carry, but the 2 touchdowns to save it was cool. And we got Wan'Dale Robinson, little 14 fantasy points from Wan'Dale Robinson. I love to see that. Wan'Dale Robinson, shockingly high score in the Breakout Finder app. The algorithm really loves all those targets and all those receptions and all that production that he put up in college. Just a volume machine in college, and then to add the athleticism on top of that, with his versatility. The dynamic score also very high for Wan'Dale Robinson. He can play quarterback, he can play running back. So I love versatile playmakers.
Definitely.
And I love seeing Wan'Dale Robinson being there. I mean, he put up 79 yards, and the next highest was something like Isaiah Hodgins, 22 yards. So he was the offense. He was the passing game at the very least. And then, Saquon Barkley, 22 fantasy points, right? So that was cool. And, on the other side of that field was another versatile playmaker who's great at football, and that's Jayden Reed. 10 targets, baby.
Yeah.
10 targets for Jayden Reed. Now, his yards per target was 2.7.
Yeah.
So very low yards per target, but he gave you the rushing production, right? He gave you the 8 catches, so the 10 fantasy points as a receiver, then the touchdown out of the backfield. Who needs a satellite back? Who needs Aaron Jones? This is the beauty of having such a versatile player like a Wan'Dale Robinson, like a Jayden Reed. Even this is the one rational case you could make for having a Kadarius Toney type player on the roster. I understand that, Kadarius Toney type players inspire the imagination, but I need them to also know how to play the wide receiver position like Jayden Reed does. Right? If you're Tyler Lockett, you're Jayden Reed, and you can do all these things, you're great on special teams, you're just a great football player, then that enhances your value as a receiver. But, Wan'Dale Robinson thus far, Kadarius Toney thus far, they haven't shown that they're polished enough receivers to really be valuable in the NFL beyond a gadget role. But if you're going to tell me, hey, you should go and try to acquire a Kadarius Toney archetype player, I say, sure, absolutely. The case for a Kadarius Toney, not in the first round, but to pick him up off the scrap heap from New York, is that, well, you can save a roster spot. I mean, if you tell me that actually by having a player like a Kadarius Toney or like a Wan'Dale Robinson would allow us to carry one less active running back, that's huge. The ability to add another linebacker or add another edge rusher or to add another depth piece on the offensive line to my active roster and not have to roster a third or fourth running back. That to me is the value of these gadget players that so often get overvalued. And the their true value is the roster flexibility that they bring, not the playmaking ability, because they're so inconsistent.
Definitely. I think that's a great point too. The fact that you're clearing up a roster spot with these kinds of players can't be understated. You mentioned obviously being able to bring in any other position when you have that. It's really nice. And seeing Jayden Reed get 8 receptions, get 4 carries, that inspires so much confidence going forward. And he's just a rookie. It's been a fantastic season for him.
Anytime a rookie gets a 10-target game,
yeah,
you're thrilled. If you have him on your dynasty team, it's a thrilling moment. You're like, oh my God, this guy. And, Dobbs actually had more yards, but Dobbs only had 7 fantasy points. So to see Reed with 19 and Dobbs with 7 in a game where Christian Watson doesn't play makes me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, even Tucker Kraft had more yards than Romeo Dobbs at the end of the day. Ends up leading the Packers in receiving with just a few more yards than Romeo Dobbs.
And there's always a guy in the chat, right? There's always a guy in my waiver wire chats telling me all about Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah.
Why I got to get that guy, and I'm like, listen, okay, why don't we focus on the positive here where, okay, we're losing Christian Watson, but this is going to open up real meaningful target share for a real playmaker that has wide receiver skills in Jayden Reed.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that this means Dontavian Wicks is a guy you need to pick up in fantasy is not. That's a stash. See, now Wicks becomes stash worthy because he's the 3rd receiver on a team that also has 2 quality tight ends. But was Musgrave out?
He was out again.
Yeah. So Musgrave was out. I didn't see that inactive come in. Tucker Kraft, why not? Tucker Kraft was a nice little value. Nice little value on Tucker Kraft. We actually had Tucker Kraft rated ahead of a bunch of these tight ends that went ahead of him.
Yeah, we did.
Right. And so when I thought that was nice little value there. And I like it when a team that has a position of need, instead of investing a 1st-round pick, instead of going up and getting a Kyle Pitts or a TJ Hawkinson in the top 10, a team says, you know what, this is a position of need, but we're not going to burn a 1st-rounder on this. We're instead going to use our 2nd-rounder and 4th-rounder on a because this is what they lose Tunyon, and even Tunyon was just a stopgap solution.
Mm-hmm.
They had no one at tight end. They needed a tight end badly, and they said, we're going to solve this problem with 2 athletic tight ends, in the middle rounds, if you will, in the non-1st round. Whereas so many teams, they see such a glaring need, and it's like, they talk themselves into using a 1st-round pick on a position that does not belong in the 1st round. You shouldn't be drafting tight ends in the 1st round. You should be drafting running backs in the 1st round. It's rare that you should be drafting a guard in the 1st round. Mm-hmm. It's just not optimal. Like look where Steve Avila, that's where you draft a guard, pick 37, right? That's where you draft a tight end. Yeah. So that Luke Musgrave, pick 43, perfect. So it's kind of cool to see the Packers 6 and 7 crawling out of this hole, and Jordan Love, not a lightning in a bottle game or anything, but at least keeping them competitive. And man, if they had won that game, they'd been 7 and 6. Oh, what a bummer! What a bummer, man. But Jordan Love didn't play badly, right? He didn't lose the game he only had 1 interception. When did he throw that interception?
I don't remember when it came in. I feel like it was early though.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, the heartbreaking thing would be if he had thrown that interception at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But
definitely. But that loss, and you talked about this a little bit yesterday on Top 10 Takeaways, that loss has made the San Francisco 49ers the 1st team to clinch the playoffs. I don't really know the math behind it. I don't know why the Packers' loss led to the 49ers making it into the playoffs, clinching their spot, but they did. So I'm just going to give a quick little clap to our San Francisco 49ers and run the applause sound effect.
It was his 2nd quarter reception by Jordan Love.
Okay, yeah. See, not even a game-breaking one then. And at that point, I mean, they were ahead a decent bit. The Giants end up coming back at the end with Tommy DeVito. I did want to show you this picture before we move away from our Monday Night Football. I don't know if you've been seeing this go around, but this picture now at the top of our screen, That's Tommy DeVito and his agent.
No way.
I swear on my life, this is Tommy DeVito's agent.
He must be feeling so good. He's feeling himself, this agent. Look at him. He's loving life, man.
Just straight out of Goodfellas. Got the fedora on, the suit. I believe that's a turtleneck under the pinstripe suit. That's a classy fit right there. Really leaning into the whole gabagool thing going on in New York with DeVito and him. I think it's very cool to see. Love the marketing coming on.
Wait, are the Vikings now going to make the playoffs?
They're still in the hunt. There's a lot of teams. So even with this,
well, the Vikings I think are in. As of right now, the Vikings are in because the NFC South has no winning teams at all. Right, right now, Tampa Bay is on top of that division. It's a 3-way tie, 6-7. Tampa, Atlanta, New Orleans. You've got San Francisco at 10-3, crushing the West. They're the best team in football. The other teams in that division are 6-7 as well. Okay, you've got Philadelphia behind Dallas now. They're both 10-3, but Dallas has the tiebreaker. So Minnesota's in. That was a huge loss by Green. That was huge. In fact, that kept the Giants' playoff hopes alive, very alive, and it took Green Bay out of the driver's seat for that. I think, though, I'd like to see who has the highest probability of making the playoffs. It says the projections on CBS with the likelihood of making the postseason, the Rams and the Seahawks are both at 30%. Green Bay is at 45% still, and Minnesota's at 70%. So even with that loss, oh my God, Jordan Love, man, like I said, he didn't lose the game at the end for them, but he didn't win it for them either. Right. So it's like two steps forward, one step back for Jordan Love. That's young quarterbacks. That's common for young quarterbacks. Interesting to note that they essentially still with that loss, Packers have close to a 50% chance of making the playoffs. So the way the probabilities are shaking out, it seems that the Vikings, the Packers, and of course the Eagles are in line to, and isn't there another playoff spot? Isn't there 7 playoff spots?
Those are the 3 wild cards right there currently. Eagles 5, Vikings 6, Packers 7, and then you mentioned the Seahawks.
Yeah,
right.
So so they added the extra wild card spot at one point, and it looks like it looks like according to these according to these sort of probabilities, there's an interesting chance where Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay all make the playoffs, and only one team from the South and one team from the West gets in.
But the positives and the negatives of divisional football, you have a really terrible NFC South and then the NFC West kind of cannibalizing each other right on the opposite end. It's fun to watch.
I mean, I thought the Packers had no business trying to compete with Jordan Love, right? So there's a bunch of things that I thought at the beginning of the year that have turned out to be wrong. I thought that the Eagles were the best team in the NFC, at worst, the second best team in the NFC, and that's not correct. Right? They're now lucky to be considered the third best team. And it's clear that the 49ers are the best team in all of football. And that the Packers were right to go for it this year. I mean, I thought all their skill position players, age 24 or younger, like, why are you holding on to any veteran players whatsoever? Why not turn over your offensive line, trade your agent, Bakhtiari, these guys have real trade value. You have some defenders with real trade value. Why not continue like a out in the open rebuild where they're like, no, actually we're going to keep these veterans on and we're going to try to make the playoffs. And now they're, they have a good 45% shot at it.
Yeah. I think they could do it. If Jordan Love plays like he did the 3 weeks prior to this Monday game, with like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns going forward, I mean, they're definitely in. They control their own destiny. And I definitely like the NFC side shaping up a little bit better than the AFC, because somehow it looks like we're going to get treated to the Colts, Browns, and Steelers as the AFC wild cards, with the Bills, Chargers, Bengals, Texans all on the outside looking in.
And by the way, another home dog, right? You have the Giants at home.
Yep.
Getting 6 points against Jordan Love. That was a smash.
That was.
Home dog again. The home dog does it again. There's some nice little home dogs on the slate in week 14 as well.
There are. We might have some stuff to talk about later regarding that. I did have one more news piece before we dive into the injuries a little bit, and this is Mr. Drake Maye. Drake Maye has announced that he will be going to the NFL draft. Do you have any thoughts about this prospect?
Not yet. I haven't really dug into college football. We are very busy here at Player Profiler, expanding at an incredibly rapid pace. A lot of responsibility falls on my shoulders. And Theo continues to demand that I keep this content schedule. My Dimension Show live, 2 o'clock, 2:30 today, right? At some point, sometime between 2 and 2:30, stay tuned, right? Top 10 takeaways every week, waiver wired. He's like, you got to do it through Thanksgiving. And I'm like, my God, Theo, he's just putting me behind a sled and just making me drag, the channel. And, now he's like, oh, we're scheduling a Sonic Truth before Christmas. Like the Friday before Christmas, we're doing it. I'm like, the Friday before Christmas. He's like, oh, people want the show. And I'm like, fine. Right. So they're chaining me up to this microphone. And then with all these other responsibilities, the last thing I can do is, dig into Drake Maye. However, I will say that we are talking about going to the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
And I'm having conversations with Theo and Maddie Kiwoom. But you're in Atlanta, and you're driving distance to Mobile.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty close.
So that's also in play. So these are the you, Theo, Maddie are the people I'm thinking about for the Senior Bowl. I guess we haven't talked about this yet.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's sometimes there's so much going on that we have to actually talk about things on air that happen.
Definitely.
So would you like to go to the Senior Bowl if it's possible?
I think that would be very cool.
Yeah. So we usually get a house with the roster watch guys. I get an Airbnb, and so I'm gonna float the idea. Theo he's up in the air whether he can go. He always has some event to go to. There's always some kid's bar mitzvah. There's always some first communion. There's always something he has to do. Because he's got a bunch of kids, and he's has significant family responsibilities. He's one of the great family mans of our time, Theo Greminger. So he's doing a great job, and love him. We'll see if he can make it. We'll see if Maddie can make. Maddie's got a family. Maddie's got multiple kids. So that's the one benefit that you have of still being. You have a girlfriend. I know you have a serious girlfriend, but no children. Which gives you some flexibility, a little Senior Bowl, right? A little, go to the Senior Bowl, go to the draft, maybe go to the combine. These are some things you can do. Didn't you go to you went to the a Roto Grinder Super Bowl party?
Yep. Went up to
last
Nashville
year, right? Like in Nashville. Yeah, why not? I'll drive up to Nashville. Hey, woo, life.
It's nice. I hope
nice.
It stays this way forever.
It is nice.
But I did just want to address. You were talking about, being put ahead of the sled, doing all this content. Blink a few times if you feel like you're under duress.
Oh, yes. Sure. Oh.
Let's discuss some injuries just real quick, and then I want to get some season thoughts before we get everyone out of here. There are a bunch of injuries on Sunday, unfortunately, lots of them with huge playoff implications. I'm going to run through them real quick, and then we can kind of talk about some takeaways in general about them. But Justin Herbert, he has a right index finger fracture, undergoing surgery. They said, depending on how it goes, he could be out for the season. I think it's fair to say, given the Chargers, how they're looking right now, he's probably going to be out the rest of the way. There's no point rushing him back. Dalton Kincaid picked up a shoulder injury day to day. Jerome Ford had a negative wrist x-ray, so he should be good to go. CJ Stroud's got a concussion. Varies from player to player, but unlikely given the way it's been this year. Nico Collins got a groin injury, still awaiting tests, but it's officially a strain. And then Josh Jacobs, a leg injury. It was originally reported as a knee. Now it's saying he didn't practice yesterday because it's a quad injury. So we'll have to discuss that for sure, as I think there's some important implications. Justin Jefferson picked up a chest injury and was taken to the hospital out of precaution, but that seems, taking someone to the hospital seems a bit much to me, but is also day-to-day. Alexander Mattison sprained his ankle, also day-to-day. And then Tyreek Hill last night picked up an ankle injury, was out for a couple quarters, came back, said he couldn't cut or change direction. So I don't really know if he's going to be able to push through. I think he will. He said he wants to, but that seems like a pretty serious ankle injury, especially for a player like Tyreek Hill.
He's a tough guy. He was not right after he went out. He came back, but he was just a decoy. Yeah. I will say with Drake Maye, someone has to explain to me the difference between Drake Maye as a prospect and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Drake Maye, 38 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. I home in on the TD to interception ratio in college. I think that you can go to Brock Purdy, you can go to a lot of quarterbacks. That is a great indicator. Dak Prescott, another late round pick that hit. What's the common thread? Incredible touchdown to interception ratio. If they know how to take care of the football in college, that's big. Already 4,300 yards, right? With the size, 6'4", 230. And then he goes out in a division rival game, like a conference rival game against NC State, another ranked opponent, puts up over 100 rushing yards.
Yep.
What?
It's awesome.
Like that was like the final piece of the puzzle. He's like, he starts to against Clemson, 67 yards. Then, NC State, 100+ yards. It's like, what else? What else do you need to see? He's got the size. He has the downfield throwing, the accuracy, the instincts to take care of the football, and then the rushing capabilities. Why we're just assuming it's going to be Caleb Williams at the 101? We see this happen all the time where there's this assumption that it's going to be, and then all of a sudden there's this big debate, right? It was going to be Peyton Manning all along, and at the last minute they almost, it was so close between Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
Carson Wentz made this last push, remember, to try to get over Jared Goff. So we have these years where it goes 1-2. Last year, the Carolina Panthers made the wrong decision.
They did.
In this last draft, going with Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. So sometimes it comes down to the wire. And I just don't understand why there's been this, like, we're going to post up Caleb Williams at the 101. And then it's all about who's the number 2, and is it Drake Maye or is it someone else? It's like, whoa, wait a second. I think it's down the middle, 50-50. Certainly Caleb Williams has that upside factor. But if I was just wanted the metrics and the stats that I trust, that I know I'm going to get, baseline production, that it's going to be a hit and not a miss. I want to be assured that draft capital is so precious that, yes, I could swing for the fences with the maximum upside pick, or I could just go with the guy that has the most stability and the least likely to bust. That is Drake Maye. So if it's me at the 101, I don't know who the 101 is going to be. Someone's going to trade for it, right? Unless the Bears decide to use it, right? I think that's a conversation we should have on the Mind of Mansion show, or maybe right now. Is Justin Fields playing well enough to convince the Bears to pass on a quarterback and trade down?
I think so. I'm a Justin Fields believer, but I also, in my gut, feel like the Bears want to move on from Justin Fields. It just, the writing seems to be on the wall in that situation. Like, I think they're done with him as their franchise quarterback, but I do think he's playing well enough. He looked really good against the Lions just this week. I mean, he's looked good all season, especially for fantasy points. So I think no matter what, he's going to be starting and very good next season, whether it's on the Bears or another team.
So basically, that was a clinic for all of you that are listening. I was not able to research the show sheet very deeply heading into the show. Jason threw out Drake Maye at me. I had no idea what to say. He then filibustered and went through the news. And then I circled back. And while he was doing that, he gave me time to go look up stats on Drake Maye. I formulated some takes. So in that 45-second time that you were filibustering for me, I got my stats, I got my takes, I circled back, I had everything memorized, I had my takes locked in. Boom, Drake Maye 101.
Yep. I like it. I think that's
how you do it. That's how you do sports
Yeah.
radio. That's how you do streaming, sports media content. That's how you do it, everybody. That's how you, well, how do you do it? How do you do so much content? How do you run a business? It's that.
Yep.
Every second counts. He gives me 30 seconds. I find a way to casually play off that, oh, of course, I don't know much about Drake Maye. I'm so busy. Meanwhile, I'm just looking for an excuse to get 30 seconds so I can get up to speed on Drake Maye. The last thing I'm going to do is someone give me a player on a player profiler podcast that I don't have a take about. That ain't going to happen, man.
You heard it here first. Drake Maye 101 and some fantastic advice on how to stay on your toes as a sports podcaster. Great work right there.
I like Drake. I actually like Drake Maye to the Bears. I think that would be great. I think that would be great. The question the Bears are going to have, it's just if they have to run the numbers. It's like, are we better off trading down and sticking with Fields, or are we better trading Fields and getting yet more picks and going with Drake Maye with that 101? Mm-hmm. Given what you could get for Fields, my sense is that just looking at the overall valuation system that they're going to be using to value all the capital and all the assets, trading Fields is going to be the way to go.
I think so too.
Although look what they were able to get for the 101 the last time.
Exactly.
I mean, if they could pull this trick again, right? If they could pull the same trick again, the treasure trove of picks they got, the overpay that they convinced Carolina to pull the trigger on just because it was the 101 and not the 102. The 101 has so much, extra value for no real reason. New England wins the game last week against the Steelers. So now the 101 is locked in. It's Carolina.
Yeah.
So, and you could think about the teams that need a quarterback. There's a lot of them, right? The teams are going to be sitting at like 8, 9, 10 that need a quarterback. The Giants, what would the Giants trade to move up? Think about that. Right? Think about some of the teams that would trade to move up. I mean, the Jets, right? But the Jets are in super win now mode. Do they even want to wait, right, for Drake Maye? I don't know. I don't think they do.
I think they try Achilles Aaron Rodgers next year.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do. And so you go down the board. Tennessee, but is Tennessee now convinced that Will Levis had another good game?
I think so.
You think Tennessee? The question is, will Tennessee I don't know if they would trade up. What about Las Vegas? What about the Raiders?
I like that. Raiders trading up makes a lot of sense.
The Raiders are 5-8. They're in that number 8, 9, 10 zone of the draft. That feels like a move that they would make, right? Mm-hmm. That's the Al Davis legacy move. That's what that feels like.
Yeah, I like that call. I think we're calling it here now too. The Raiders.
So I think maybe that's it. Maybe that's the move. I think that what happened was the Bears are feeling themselves now. They feel like the franchise is in the midst of a turning of the ship, right? It takes a long time to turn these tankers, but they can feel the winds shifting, the currents shifting underneath them. That defense is performing so much better. Mm-hmm. Look what happened last week against the Lions, where they're shutting down the Lions offense.
Yep.
Amazing, right? Yep. The offense is clicking. Fields to more is happening. Fields is also, the escapability to erase any problems with the offensive line. No problem. Justin Fields erases those things. Let's stick with it. He was a prolific player at Ohio State, needed some extra time to develop.
Yeah.
This makes sense. And then they drunk the wine already. Like it touched their lips last year, trading that 101 and getting all those picks and then looking like geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ability to do that again, that is such a high. I would think they want to inject that into their veins again. Like, yes, another DJ Moore. Yes, another third rounder 2 years from now. Right? That's just gratuitous added draft picks that we don't even need, but we're just going to have because then then we're going to be able to run the show. Then the Bears' ability to run these drafts, have all these extra picks in all these rounds where they can be packaging and moving up and moving down, and they can really give Howie Roseman a run for his money on draft day.
Yeah.
See that temptation, now that they've already drunk the wine, I would think they want to go back to that. They're like, let's open another bottle. Let's go back to it. Let's see what the Raiders are willing to pay. Let's see what Tennessee is willing to pay.
And the Raiders are perfectly positioned to not only give their first round pick, but they can move on from Devontae Adams. They can move on from Josh Jacobs. They have these older pieces that just really have no use on their team. You talked about Max Crosby yesterday on Top 10 Takeaways. I mean, that would be a fantastic piece.
Oh my God. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? They're like, you know what? We actually have too many picks. We can't even accommodate all these picks on our roster. We can't even add this many new players. So why don't you give us Crosby? Right? We'll take your first rounder. And then, of course, you have to always ask for the third rounder in 2026.
You have to.
Right? And Crosby. Oh, my God. That would go. What? The Bears are like Super Bowl bound, man. Like the Bears are the new Lions. The Bears, you need to get out ahead of these franchises that are so clearly turning things around and set up for success in the future with extra picks. Mm-hmm. That is the Bears now. And then so now that it's funny because you've got a team that rebuilt itself in a way that surprised me. I'm like, all these 24-year-old skill position players. The Packers crept up on me, and the fact that they always had Jordan Love as their heir to Aaron Rodgers' plan, I was never buying it. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. And then it's like the Vikings are suddenly the team that is in purgatory. If the other teams are rebuilding at pace, and the front office stars of the league are all in the NFC North, the Vikings are going to be like, damn, man, we're getting run over. It's already happening. We talked about it earlier. It's already the probability is already high that there's 3 teams out of the NFC North. It's like already happening. Mm-hmm. It's becoming a wicked division.
It is. It's a fun one. Especially when you just got the classic teams, Packers, Bears, Lions, Vikings. They have that feel. It's nice to see them good at football. It's nice.
So Dakota Vanderhoof in the chat believes that Levis has shown flashes and needs to start next year. Okay, so just to put it in context, Will Levis has now had 2 good games, and that one good game, his first good game, was the flukiest game I've ever seen. If you go back and watch the tape, I challenge you to find a flukier game. And then the Dolphins are, that's always a shootout waiting to happen. That's always a 50-plus point total. So I would like to see him perform well against a real sort of a grinded-out team. We'll see. We'll see. With Will Levis, we'll see. 2 games, not enough.
Yeah, I wish
2 games. I wish I could say, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to crown him. No, I'm not ready to crown him. And I believe this is let's see. I want to see what Cody Carpentier was saying about the Titans, because I was looking at Cody's latest mock draft out of curiosity. Mm-hmm. And I believe that he had the a team trading up that I think it might have been the Titans, but I got to verify this. I need to verify this.
Go ahead.
I need to verify this.
I think if Will Levis came in last year.
No, I apologize. It wasn't. It was not. I thought it was the Titans. It was not. It was a team with a city that starts with T. But it wasn't Tennessee. It was actually Tampa. Okay, because I was like, wait a second. If Cody believes that the Titans should be trading up for the 101, then again, he's the biggest Will Levis advocate there is. Mm-hmm. Then that's saying a lot. Right. That to me, that would see if Cody's saying the Titans are moving up to 1, then that's a wrap for Will Levis. But no, Will Levis fans, still plenty of hope. Don't worry. Everything's fine. He believes it's Tampa that's going to trade up to 1. That's another option. You forget about Tampa because they're leading their division. And they just came off a great game, but they have Baker Mayfield. I mean, that would be another candidate to trade up. The problem is if they're this close to making the playoffs and they're playing well right now, they might have too far to go to trade up. It might be a bridge too far where it's much easier to see the Raiders making that move.
I think it's the Raiders. It felt really good when we started talking about it. It just felt right. But I do want to get your thoughts just as we're now.
Senior football is saying it might be the Steelers, but the Steelers have way too far to go. The Steelers' record is too good. The Steelers have been the luckiest team in the NFL the last 3 years, outperforming their point differential by a wide margin. It's been the Steelers and the Vikings, right? And the problem is their record's too good, and now Joe Burrow's out. Now Deshaun Watson's out. My premise that the AFC North would be a shootout division was nullified early in the year with the Joe Burrow injury that he can never really come back from.
Yeah, that was a tough break.
So there's too far to go. You can't trade up from like 18 unless the Steelers tank the rest of the season. But like I said, the AFC North is collapsing around them, so they're gonna get some more wins.
Yeah, I think both the Browns are just gonna lock themselves into the playoffs. Just that they're already in it, and I can't imagine they pick up enough losses to fall out in that division.
Yeah, I think though it doesn't matter really. Whoever makes it from the AFC to the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because they're just going to get absolutely destroyed and dismantled by the 49ers. I don't see how any team can even compete with them. What they've done, how they've embarrassed the Cowboys and the Eagles already, I just don't see it. Like, I don't understand how anyone can beat them. I don't even think the NFL is interesting anymore. I think fantasy is interesting, but I know the NFL is not interesting because it's a foregone conclusion. The 49ers are the best team.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's the MVP. They're going to win it all. They're going to crown Kyle Shanahan. He's going to go down he's going to become a legendary coach. It's going to make me want to throw up in my mouth, but it's what's going to happen. It's what's going to happen. And everything else is just masturbatory exercise, talking about, Miami and, Kansas City. The one team in the AFC I think can do it. The one team, a team needs an X factor. No way Miami does it. They don't have Tyreek Hill is not the X factor I'm talking about, right? You need Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is the requisite X factor to, if you were going to pick one AFC team that could potentially challenge the 49ers, it would be the Ravens, but not going to happen.
No, I think it's the 49ers year. That is interesting, though. There was a thing going around a few weeks ago. There was like a little, since Super Bowl 50, the Super Bowl logo's colors has had the teams that were in the Super Bowl, and this year it's purple and red. If it sticks to it, that could be, the Ravens 49ers as we go forward. However you guys want to read into fun little conspiracy theories like that.
Can you believe? Well, the in terms of point differentials, the best point differential is actually not even San Francisco. It's Dallas. Dallas has scored 421 points, and they've only given up 188. So they actually have a better point differential, 188. Philly's is only 21. So Philly is officially overrated.
They are.
And they're done. They just don't have the horses, right? They don't have the auxiliary pieces that Dallas has. And I thought it was the opposite when the season started. And so it's San Francisco versus Dallas in the NFC, and it is Baltimore, Buffalo. Those are the two best teams in the AFC. And so I think that's going to be the AFC Championship game. And if they don't face each other beforehand, but it is Baltimore with by far and away the best point differential in the AFC. So I'm correct.
Yeah, they had some really good games against like the Lions. They blew out the Chargers. They blew out. They do really well against good opponents, which bodes well for the playoffs.
Lamar gets on a roll. That's the only way. You get turnovers. Ravens force some turnovers, and Lamar Jackson gets hot. That's the only way anyone beats the 49ers.
Yeah, or like injuries happen to the 49ers, which hopefully not. But
No, don't do that. Don't
I'm just saying
that.
that's the only way. Like they're way too
Don't
good.
do that. Don't do that. Isn't it funny? It's Chucka Baby is in the chat, and he's talking about how Kellen Moore is now viewed as the reason. Can you believe this? If anyone wants to know why coach worship and coach analysis drives me crazy, makes me want to lose my mind, it's because the whole reason to avoid Dak this year was he was losing Kellen Moore. Now we're in the chat saying the reason why the Chargers are tanking is because of Kellen Moore, and the Dak is succeeding, and he's an MVP candidate because he lost Kellen Moore. Make up your minds! Don't know anything. You don't know if Kellen Moore is any good. You can't tell. Like my always ask is, okay, show me the play. It's a very simple request. It's a very simple request for all the coach worshipers, right? Under Kellen Moore. Like when these broadcasters start their analysis or start their broadcast with under Kellen Moore, this is happening. Or they talk about the Kellen Moore offense as if that's meaningful. Those are not meaningful words. It's nonsense words. Shut up. Shut up about the coach, right? Enough, right? That's why the Shanahan thing drives me nuts because he has got superstars, right? He's got, was he the reason they drafted Brock Purdy? No, right? He was the reason they drafted Trey Lance. It's Debo and Christian McCaffrey and just and a stud front seven and great offensive linemen. That's the reason. It's not the coach. If you want to tell me the play, show me the play that's a Kellen Moore architected play. That's all I've ever asked. Show me the play. Show me the play that the Cowboys ran that is from the mind of Kellen Moore, that he patented, a play that no one else runs, that he invented, and it's the strategic reason why they're winning, are plays like this, right? So show me the play that they run that other people don't run, that Kellen Moore invented, that makes him the reason that their offense is a different offense than any other offense in the league, that just it's not about just the fact they have better players, right? So no one has ever, and I've asked a lot of football people, I've asked and asked and asked, show me the play. Show me the play where you can show me, okay, this is the Kellen Moore stamp is on this play. The way this player is moving, what they're doing here, what the offensive line's doing, and this is a Kellen Moore architected play, and this is why he deserves the credit more than the players, right? And I've always asked this question. I'm like, show me the play and where this is where the offensive line, this is where the offensive coordinator, it reveals his value, where he's doing something special that no one else does around the league. And this is why they have a competitive advantage. And no one has been able to give me the play. And even beyond that, the specifics about that play that make it special or a signature of that particular offensive coordinator. It's never been shown. It's completely fake. All the offensive coordinator touting, they run the same plays. Mm-hmm. There's the the West Coast offense that's been passed on from, offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator, and there's slight tweaks. And the moment one team makes a tweak, all the other offensive coordinators write it down, and they're all running it the very next week, right? So it's all fake. It's all kabuki theater of the NFL, that the offensive coordinators are doing anything special that another offensive coordinator wouldn't be able to do. And the Kellen Moore analysis, if you go back and I force you to read all this nonsensical Kellen Moore analysis, and now we have people in the chat that are saying the reason why is Kellen Moore is bad, right? And it's just they flip. It's just whatever the narrative is, whatever allows us to look past the players and think about something else, whatever allows us to identify with the guy on the sidelines that's wearing the khakis, who looks more like we do, as regular human beings, right? Whatever allows us to identify with those guys instead of the players, that's what we're going to gravitate to. That's where we're going to construct our narratives around. And it's pathetic. It's pathetic and it's baseless. And it only holds back sports analysis. And this is in all sports. I'm a big, soccer fan now, and they do the same nonsense. They do the same nonsense. And it's like, shut up. Show me what they're doing that's different than Team X. Show me exactly. And then, because they can't, because obviously every team sees every other team's plays, and anything innovative has a 1-week shelf life. So shut the fuck up.
Move on from the coach talk, guys. It's all about the players.
Hey, Robert Kelly. Love you, Robert. Okay. You say love Matt. Okay. Jason's having me on to talk. Yeah. That's why he's on every morning. You can listen to him monologue every single morning. It's a rare thing that I am on the show. So when he asked me to come on the show, the assumption is he has me to come on the show to dominate this goddamn microphone, because I'm going to be on here once every few months and he's on every fucking day. So it's a treat to have me on, listen to me talk, and me to set the record straight about coach analysis. And Jason is happy to have it. You understand that? Jason does the show every day. For him to have the ability to not have to construct a show sheet and to carry the entire show for once in a week is a respite for him. It's a great benefit. Like it's a pleasure. He's happy to turn the microphone over to me. So shut up.
This is true.
Robert Kelly, shut up. Every coach, shut up. Broadcasters, coach worshipers, shut up.
So I've got 2 questions I want to ask you before we get out of here. And it's just about the whole season. We're nearing the end. And as you just said, the Podfather's not on here too often. And so I just wanted to get your take. What was your biggest surprise this season? Or maybe just a big surprise if, you don't want to coin the biggest. But just what's somebody who surprised you the most?
Mike Evans.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Mike Evans has been shocking. No one does this. Do you understand this? No one does this. Mm-hmm. Calvin Johnson. Most people think Calvin Johnson's the greatest receiver in the history of the game in terms of physical specimen, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Calvin Johnson had an incremental decline after the age apex. Right? We can go down R.I.P. Demaryius Thomas.
Yep.
Julio Jones. Andre Johnson. Any big receiver, big X receiver. Best example, Brandon Marshall. Right? Brandon Marshall is a very close comp to Mike Evans. Mike Evans and Brandon Marshall, very similar games.
Yep.
Incremental decline. There's no renaissance year. Remember that everyone was hoping for a renaissance year? Oh, with the Titans, remember?
Yep. Yeah.
Julio Jones, renaissance year. It's coming. Trust me. It never comes. Yeah. The renaissance year at age 30 never happens. Maybe with a possession receiver like an Adam Thielen, it's possible. Mm-hmm. We've seen this. We've seen a Larry Fitzgerald have a inflection point. There's been inflection points, but they're always possession type receivers. They're not these big hulking X receivers. I've never seen it in my life. I've never seen an inflection point at age 30 for a big hulking X receiver. It's to my knowledge. I mean, I would love for the chat to help, right? I would love for the chat to instead of being hypercritical of our show format and my ability to talk, I would love for the chat to actually be helpful for once. Maybe provide us with an example of a Mike Evans archetype player who had a career inflection point at age 30. The idea that he would turn around all his advanced efficiency metrics, that he would spike the football on his overall production, going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield, it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. It's such an opposite world, jarring experience to see what Mike Evans is doing, especially given where Chris, and on the flip side, these two ships in the night passing each other with him and Chris Godwin in his prime still, with the body type of a player that typically has career years at age 27, 28, to have to take a step back, another year removed from an ACL tear. So there's so much happening in this Buccaneers passing game that is antithetical to everything that I have come to believe is what I expect going into a season, that it's so disorienting.
It's been a special year from him. I think a lot of people were maybe expecting some value to come from the Buccaneers offense, but if I remember correctly from the offseason, it was basically everyone saying the value was going to be Rachaad White or Chris Godwin. Everyone was writing off Mike Evans, saying that Baker Mayfield wouldn't be able to hit him, not his type of receiver.
And maybe not everybody, but everyone that knows anything, anyone that follows the advanced metrics, all the people, all the influencers that I follow, that I pay attention to, none of them were like, like it was basically the counting stats, the guys that love Hall of Famers, brand names, like the casual analysis, the surface level analysis was like, Mike Evans because it's Mike Evans.
Yeah, fair.
Right. But so it was shocking. And I'm here for it. I mean, like I said, Hall of Famer. Like, this guy's a Hall of Famer. 10 straight years with 1,000 yards. Who does that?
The only other one is Jerry Rice.
It's amazing.
Like it's
15 games played every year.
Yep.
I mean, what a stud.
Awesome.
What a stud. I'm it's sad that my problem is that his down years I predicted. And so I sort of started to have a little cottage industry around predicting Mike Evans' demise, and it's worked out for me until now. And so my biases were really, it was like everyone was singing a chorus that he was trending down. All the advanced metrics I pay attention to were indicating this, and I was already biased against him. So that's why it's such a side swipe. But I'm now, don't worry. If you're that unprecedented, I will flip. Don't worry. I'll flip flop in a heartbeat. I'm happy to flip flop on Mike Evans. Like, I'm like, hey, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
I give him so much credit, and now I'm a big Mike Evans fan. This is what it took.
Yeah.
But you do this kind of unprecedented, get the 1,000-yard season streak plus the inflection point that I've never seen, then you have I'm a lifelong Mike Evans fan now.
Let's flip the coin. Who's disappointed you the most? And don't say Quentin Johnston. He was already expected to be disappointing. Or has he even been more disappointing than you could have thought?
Well, thankfully it's not Tony Pollard anymore.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard, 15 fantasy points against the Eagles. What else could you want? They allow like 10 fantasy points total to all running backs per game. So that was great to see. Yeah, it's a tricky one. There's not too many because so many of these receivers I was drafting early have hit. Right? So it's I mean, you could say Jamar Chase, but he's been succeeding in some pretty difficult situations. He puts up 30 points with Browning at quarterback. Yeah. What more do you want from Jamar Chase?
Still top 5,
right? It's hard for me to criticize him. I love that Fields DJ Moore stack.
Yep,
and that thing's hitting. So a lot of my individual tactics are hitting, from round to round. So I'm actually not that disappointed in many players. That's a really good question. I wasn't on, you think about some of the catastrophic busts. Like I wasn't on Aaron Jones. I wasn't on some of these guys. David Montgomery has returned value. All these late round running backs we liked. Rachaad White returning value. Right. So, loving life. It wasn't, I wasn't drafting Cooper Kupp because I was drafting Amon-Ra St. Brown instead. So it's a tricky situation. ETN is delivered for us.
Yeah.
All right. The first sort of cornerstone running back that we liked in the 4th round. Love that.
Yeah.
We were fading Amari Cooper into oblivion. He finally had an Amari Cooper home game, like bounce back game, even though David Njoku still out produced him. Right. So it's, man, I don't, DK Metcalf's like surging. I think that given his opportunities in 3 receiver sets, I might want to say Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I mean, I think that's
Jackson
fair.
Smith and Jigba. He had another 7-target game. And what does he do? 25 yards. We're predicting. I was predicting big pop performances in the second half from Rashee Rice and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Rashi's delivering.
Yeah.
We're like, you better trade for him now. You better trade. His lifetime value is like doubled this year. Because it's like, you better trade for him now because these spike weeks are coming. And as soon as he gets one spike week, everyone's gonna hit everybody. Oh my God, how valuable is this guy moving forward? Like, between you and me, it's not clear that you would want Puka Nacua over Rashee Rice in Dynasty. I think that's a conversation.
I think it's definitely a conversation. I think it's close.
I think you'd still want Puka, but yeah, it's now your mind starts to turn like, wait a second, I don't know. This could maybe yeah, so Jackson Smith and Jigba. Kenneth Walker had the injury. He was productive before the injury, and even now he comes back. He rushes himself back and then doubles up the production of Charbonnet. Was much more heavily used in the passing game than Charbonnet last week, which was interesting. So nothing that disappointing really about this. It's when you ask the question, then I have to go try to find someone, and it's shocking how few players have disappointed me this year. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's had opportunities, right, where Tyler Lockett hasn't been 100%, where DK Metcalf hasn't been 100%. They're running all the 3 receiver sets. He's running all these routes. He's getting targets, and he's just not delivering. And I thought he was a different guy. I guess the best example is probably Kenny Pickett. Okay. I just didn't want to say a quarterback. But if I had to think about like guys I was drafting that I was feeling pretty good about value-wise, Kenny Pickett late was I thought a kind of a easy pick. A lot of upside there with the ability, the rushing ability, and the weapons, and for him to just deliver nothing, like the rushing non-existent, 5 carries for 5 yards, and just be useless. I mean, it's a small sample trap. I loved that he was accurate in small samples under pressure and on deep balls last year, but he didn't have that many reps. And, I certainly extrapolated too much, and I started thinking, I was thinking about his ability as a runner and the weapons. And at that point, all I needed was some advanced metrics for as a toe hold. And I found those in the under pressure metrics and the deep ball metrics, where he was top of the league.
Yeah.
But then you look at the actual sample, and it's so small that's the problem. Is you go out there trying to look for, practicing this, this bias, right? And you get sideswiped a little bit. Fortunately, though, this is a late round pick.
It was.
Right. This is a guy that you're just churning after a couple weeks, and you're pivoting over to CJ Stroud, and it's not a big deal. Right. So it didn't hurt you. So it's hard to find guys that really hurt me in drafts. And that's mostly because we weren't drafting running backs early. Yeah. Like, if you don't want to be hurt, if you value your feelings, right, then you should probably avoid running backs early most of the time. And, and you can go ahead and practice some confirmation bias later in the draft, and it won't hurt you.
Yeah, true. All right. I think that's a great place to just go ahead and wrap up things here. So thank you all so
Already? It's only been an hour.
An hour on the Wake and Take, the short show.
This is supposed to be what is it supposed to be, a 20-minute show?
Yeah, I think in season we've had a few hour longs, especially on Mondays as we talk about everything. But yeah, for the most part, 20, 30 minutes is what we shoot for. But we've got the Podfather on. We had a lot to talk about. We're heading into week 15 now. Season has flown by.
I love the chat. The chat has been very active. I mean, there's some assholes in the chat. There's some great some of our most engaging audience members are in the chat, kicking ass. I love the accountability in the chat where people are getting called out and they're show me the evidence and no, you're wrong. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. You can't just come with a flaccid position and have nothing to back it up.
No, for sure. In the chat, they're awesome every morning. Love having them join me. They're always active in there doing some great stuff. So thanks to them.
Bob Howard. Bob, see, why is Bob Howard? We even late, like, look at this. Even late in the stream, we've got people like thundering in, hammering Kellen Moore. Like M Lad comes in late, right, and doesn't know that we had this whole like extended diatribe on Kellen Moore and how he's exemplary of what's wrong with football analysis. And he's like, he comes in at the end. He's like, hey, by the way, Dallas has been better without Kellen Moore. And we're like, oh, really? Let's get into that again. Right. And then someone else is like, hey, did you put up on the screen Bob Howard?
Oh, I did.
Bob Howard, it's always, I will say that it's a tricky thing, right? I don't make fun of how people look, like privately. Sometimes I do. Generally, I think that only among friends you should be making fun of how strangers look. I think is really rude. But amongst your friends, like I love your Tom Brady sweater because it's 12-12.
It is.
I think that just goes to show the thought that Jason puts in every morning to this show. Like that's evidence. That's the evidence you need that he's killing it. He's wearing a 12-12 sweater, people. He's not going through the motions, right? And yes, his hair looks a little greasy. Yes, his beard could be fuller. This is all true. But I guarantee that none of you are fucking supermodels. So shut up. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.